making a sound. I'm saying, whoa, oh, tell me what's the difference between you and I. I'm saying, whoa, oh, tell me what's the difference between you and I. Bring it with you now. Sound. I'm saying, whoa, oh, tell me what's the difference between you and I. I'm saying, whoa, oh, tell me what's the difference between you and I. Bring it with you now. 1, 2, the 2 to the 3. Well, break down to make a little money, and 4, 5 to 5 to the 6. Well, got myself down up on the tricks, and break my neck just to make a paycheck. Do my things and I do it on the step. Well, Kit Kat in the back of the black Cadillac, trick track. What about that? Whoa, oh, tell me what's the difference between you and I. I'm saying, whoa, oh, tell me what's the difference between you and, what's the difference with you and I?
One. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Wiregrass Haunts. We tracked our guest down. We managed to get her back on the line. We were having a great discussion when we left, and since we've got Miss Andrea back, we're going to let her pick up where she left off, and we were talking about some extraterrestrials, and so we'll get back to some more questions here in just a little bit, so y'all keep them coming, and you know, we're having a good show, so y'all hang real tight, because here we go. All right, Miss Andrea, inform us.
Well, when you were, I got in touch with Teresa in the chat box and said, we got cut off. I blame the ETs for this. They do this a lot. When I do a lot of interviews, I do interviews over in Europe on Skype. I'm connected all over the world in terms of this subject matter. But I have found over the course of time that when I specifically address certain issues, including the one that I started talking about when we got so, cut off, I guess is the best way to put it. It was very abrupt is all I know. And it's a way for them to let me know, or to let the listeners know that they're right here with us. And so they finagle with our technology, which we can thank them for, whether it was provided to humanity through downloads or through reverse engineering or, any other number of ways. I mean, we're clever as a race, but you can't look back over the last 100 years and say that there wasn't some help in terms of the quantum leaps of in technological advancements which have occurred on this planet. So anyway, when I generally we get unceremoniously cut off when I start talking about my friend Paul Hellyer, the former Defense Minister of Canada, and that's what I think I was talking about when
Yes.
when that occurred. And he said that about 77 years ago, when we began exploding atomic bombs on this planet, that they came from every corner of the universe because all the dimensions are interconnected. And when we're doing damage on this planet, we are simultaneously damaging other places in the universe. And so they came in droves and looked down upon us and said, oh no, the children are playing with matches. And they have been overseeing us ever since, in numbers beyond our ability to comprehend. I see them. If everybody saw what I saw on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-by-hour basis, flying around in the sky, humanity would be a lot different than it is now. Part of the reason that they are here, they're not here to save us from ourselves. We have to do that. We do. But they are here to elevate the discourse and to raise the vibrational field of this planet simply by making their presence known to the mere mortals on it, who are apparently hell-bent and determined to kill off ourselves and the planet on which we live. They're very concerned about us, and they should be. And they love us. They care about us. And one of the things that, I've had 40 plus years of direct contact and interaction, which I have delineated in great detail in my new book, because I have nothing to hide and everything to share. And I'm really tough on the government. I really called them to task for the 7 decades of blatant, bold-faced lying that has gone on. Unfortunately, in our society today, we're getting pretty used to that kind of false information coming out of Washington. But for 5, 6 presidencies now, this information has been known and not shared with the public, even though we're the ones that are funding the research into it. I have a real issue with that. I have a real problem with that. And yet the messages that I'm receiving from the galactic family are in opposition to my attitude, I guess, is the best way to put it. The way they feel about it is we need to let it go. We need to absolve the offenders and move forward rather than holding them accountable and looking back at the infractions. We need to simply forgive them and move on. I don't know quite how ready I am yet to forgive them for withholding the most vital information that humanity has ever had access to, and keeping it from 99.9% of the world population. I think that it was done for nefarious reasons to preserve their illusions of power. I think that they're afraid that this information getting out too broadly will somehow usurp or circumvent their illusion of power. And maybe it will, and maybe it will create a new world. But I can't think of anything, not anything, that would unite humanity faster or more effectively than having all of us looking up into the sky and seeing thousands of vessels circumnavigating this globe. We would suddenly be one race, one human family. And yes, people would perceive it as a threat. People would perceive it as an invasion. Here's the news, folks. If they wanted to have us for lunch, they could have done it millennia ago. This is not about taking over the planet, stripping it of its resources, turning us all into slaves or worse. It's not about any of that. These are enlightened, highly advanced, highly intellectual, spiritual, sentient, prescient beings who are so far evolved beyond where we are as a race that we can't even, the vast majority of us can't even relate to it. And the lies that have been perpetrated, through the exploitation in Hollywood, turning everything into a threat, turning everything into War of the Worlds, turning everything into Alien and stuff biting your heads off and, coming up through your chest and, every kind of gruesome image that you can possibly imagine does an enormous disservice to humanity. There are only two directors who I admire enormously, well, three, who have worked in this genre in specifically related to extraterrestrials, and that's Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, particularly, and also the James who did Avatar, I think is very well connected. I have enormous respect for Gene Roddenberry, who I considered a visionary, Carl Sagan, Twilight Zone. There were some things that were put out there that weren't all about appealing to the fear-based carbon units that populate this planet, that were actually tailored to those of us that could imagine making friends with a little botanist that got left behind. E.T. did more to shape shift our imaginations into what the truth of our relationship is with those around us. And I kudos to Spielberg. I know he's got inside information and an inside track. And in fact, Paul Hellyer told me that you might as well look at Close Encounters of the Third Kind as a documentary. The only thing about that film that is not actually accurate is that the exchange, which is documented in the film, actually took place at Area 51, not at Devil's Tower, Wyoming. They did that for dramatic effect because it's such an extraordinary place, but that's not actually where it occurred. You hear that?
What is
Yeah.
it?
Did you hear that? Did either one of you make those noises?
I did.
No. No.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I've got some activity in this house here tonight too. I keep seeing there's stuff going on in this house tonight, but I'm not going to say that really loudly because I don't want my mother or my sister to hear it. I'd like them to just be able to go quietly to bed and not have to worry about what I'm seeing going on in here tonight. But yeah, I do have a tendency to receive visits while I'm doing interviews such as this. I think really more for they're like my support system, but they come from the solar system. You know what I mean? They're so sweet.
Cool.
I just love them. I truly love them.
Wow. I do have a couple of questions if we can ask a couple of them.
Sure.
Okay. Our friend Jacob asked another question. It's just a theory, but since I'm a student in physics, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong word. Physics, we discuss it in physics, a frame of reference, which I won't go into what that's about. But what